Liam trusted exactly two things in this world: his survival instincts, and his lethal Belgian Malinois, Titan. Titan despised everyone. So when Liam's soft-spoken night nurse flashed a highly classified tactical hand signal in the dark, and the aggressive K9 instantly submitted, Liam realized his nightmare wasn't over. It was inside his house. The isolated cabin in the dense, rain-soaked woods of the Pacific Northwest was supposed to be a sanctuary. For Liam Gallagher, a former federal fugitive task force commander, it felt more like a tomb. 6 months earlier, a raid on a compound tied to the notorious Navarro syndicate had gone catastrophically wrong. The intel had been a trap. Liam's team was ambushed, resulting in the loss of 3 good men, and leaving Liam with a shattered femur, a reconstructed spine, and a traumatic brain injury that made the shadows in his bedroom dance with phantom threats. The only reason Liam had survived the bloodbath was Titan. Titan was a 70-pound Belgian Malinois, a dog bred for war and shaped by violence, a retired Special Operations K9, scarred and intensely protective. Since the ambush, Titan had become dangerously unhinged around strangers. He slept at the foot of Liam's adjustable medical bed, one ear always swiveled toward the hallway, a low, guttural rumble waiting in his chest for anyone foolish enough to step too close. Liam's recovery required around-the-clock medical care, a reality he despised. The daytime nurses were a revolving door of terrified professionals who quit after a few days, unable to handle Liam's abrasive paranoia and Titan's aggressive posturing. Then came Evelyn. Evelyn Harper arrived on a Tuesday evening, stepping out of an unassuming gray sedan. She was hired through the premier private medical agency Liam's brother, Wyatt, insisted on using. She didn't look like much, petite, dark hair tied back in a severe, no-nonsense bun, wearing oversized navy scrubs that swallowed her frame. Her file stated she had 10 years of critical care experience, specializing in trauma recovery. When Evelyn first walked into the master bedroom, Liam braced himself for the usual routine: the sudden freeze, the gasp of fear, the slow, terrified shuffle toward the four-stand. Titan immediately stood, the hair on his spine bristling like a mohawk. The dog bared his teeth, letting out a snarl that usually sent grown men backing straight out of the room. But Evelyn didn't flinch. She didn't even look at the dog. She kept her eyes locked on Liam, her expression entirely neutral. She moved with a strange, fluid grace, her footsteps completely silent on the hardwood floor. She walked past the aggressive canine with a millimeter to spare, checked Liam's vitals, adjusted his pain medication pump, and retreated to the corner armchair without saying a single word. "He bites," Liam rasped, his voice raw from disuse, testing her. Evelyn looked up from her medical chart, her eyes a flat, unreadable hazel. "Only if he's given the command, Mr. Gallagher. Or if he senses a lack of authority. I'm just here to change your dressings and monitor your vitals. Try to get some sleep." Liam didn't sleep. He watched her. For the first 2 weeks, Evelyn was a phantom in his home. She arrived precisely at 8 in the evening and left at 6 in the morning. She never dropped a tray, never slammed a door, never engaged in idle chatter. She administered his intravenous antibiotics with a terrifying efficiency. But it was her situational awareness that set Liam's teeth on edge. Liam had spent a decade hunting the most dangerous men on the continent. He knew how civilians moved. Civilians bumped into furniture in the dark. They startled when the ice maker dropped ice. They stared at their phones. Evelyn did none of those things. When she sat in the corner of the room, she always positioned herself with a clear line of sight to both the door and the window. When a loud crack of thunder shook the house, her eyes didn't widen in surprise, they immediately tracked to the point of entry. And then there was her relationship with Titan. Titan still didn't like her, but his aggression had morphed into a strange, tense confusion. When Evelyn moved around the room, Titan tracked her intensely, his head tilting as if trying to decipher a puzzle. It was as if the dog recognized something in her, a frequency, an energy that Liam couldn't quite put his finger on. Liam's paranoia, fueled by heavy painkillers and the trauma of the ambush, began to fester. The Navarro syndicate knew he was alive. They knew he could identify the mole inside the federal agency who had sold his team out. Was it possible they'd sent a professional to finish the job? He tried to dismiss the thought. Wyatt had vetted the agency thoroughly. Evelyn had a state nursing license, glowing recommendations, a pristine background. She was just a quiet, competent nurse, or so he tried to convince himself. Until the night the storm knocked out the power, and the illusion of Evelyn Harper was shattered completely. It was 2 a.m. on a Friday. A torrential downpour hammered the roof of the cabin, the wind howling through the pines like a wounded animal. Liam lay in bed, feigning sleep, his right hand resting beneath his pillow, fingers brushing the cold steel grip of a compact Glock 19. The power had flickered and died 20 minutes earlier, plunging the house into pitch blackness, save for the weak amber glow of the emergency battery lighting in the hallway. Evelyn was in the kitchen, presumably fetching more ice for his knee. Suddenly, a massive tree branch snapped outside, crashing violently against the heavy security glass of the bedroom window. The sound was like a gunshot. Titan erupted. The Malinois launched himself off the bed, hitting the floor with a heavy thud, charging the window, his barks deafening, echoing off the high wooden ceilings. He was in full combat mode, teeth bared, saliva flying, ready to tear through the glass and rip apart whatever threat lay on the other side. Liam tried to sit up, a sharp spike of agony shooting up his spine. He gripped the Glock, pulling it from under the pillow, his breath catching in his throat. The bedroom door swung open. Evelyn stepped into the room, holding a flashlight. The sudden beam swept across the floor, catching Titan. The dog, already in a heightened state of violent arousal, whipped around. Seeing a figure silhouetted in the doorway, his territorial instincts overrode everything else. Titan lunged toward Evelyn, a terrifying blur of muscle and teeth, fully committed to a brutal takedown. Liam opened his mouth to scream a stand-down command, panic seizing his chest. He knew what a Malinois bite could do. Titan could tear her throat out in seconds. But Evelyn didn't scream. She didn't drop the flashlight. She didn't retreat. In a fraction of a second, her entire posture transformed. The hunched, unassuming nurse vanished. Her shoulders squared, her center of gravity dropped perfectly into a balanced tactical stance. She killed the flashlight instantly, plunging them back into darkness. But in the ambient glow from the hall, Liam saw exactly what she did next. She didn't speak a word. She sharply snapped her right hand down to her side, formed a tight fist, extended her index and middle fingers, and executed a swift, razor-sharp downward slice, followed by a subtle rotation of her wrist. It was an obscure, non-verbal command. Titan hit the brakes so hard his claws gouged the hardwood floor. He skidded to a halt inches from Evelyn's boots. The vicious barking choked off instantly. The dog dropped like a stone, belly to the floor, ears pinned back, letting out a soft, high-pitched whine of total submission. He didn't just stop. He yielded completely, his eyes locked on Evelyn's hand. Liam froze, the Glock heavy in his trembling grip. The air in the room seemed to evaporate. That wasn't a standard police K-9 command. That wasn't even standard military. That specific sequence, the two-finger slice and wrist rotation, was a Tier 1 Joint Special Operations Command hand signal, used by top-tier elite handlers to silently call off a kill dog during stealth infiltrations behind enemy lines. Only a fraction of military personnel even knew it existed, let alone had the authority and sheer presence to execute it so flawlessly that a hostile, hyper-aroused dog would obey instantly. Evelyn stood over the massive dog for a long, heavy second. Then her shoulders slumped. The tactical operator vanished, replaced instantly by the quiet night nurse. She clicked the flashlight back on, shining it safely at the floor. "It's just the wind, buddy," she murmured softly to the dog, stepping around him as if he were a golden retriever puppy. She walked over to Liam's bed. Liam quickly closed his eyes, slowing his breathing, slipping the gun back under the pillow just as she reached his side. He kept his eyelids slitted, watching her through his lashes. Evelyn checked his pulse monitor, adjusted the blanket, and walked back to her chair in the corner. Titan crawled back to the foot of the bed, refusing to take his eyes off her. Liam's mind was racing, a cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. Who the hell is this woman? The next morning, when the daytime nurse arrived, Liam demanded his laptop. As soon as he was alone, he initiated a secure, encrypted video call to the only man he still trusted, Cole Henderson, a former intelligence analyst now working as a private defense contractor in Virginia. "You look like hell, Liam," Cole said, his face appearing on screen, illuminated by the glow of multiple monitors. "I need you to run a ghost protocol background check," Liam said, his voice a low, urgent whisper. "Name is Evelyn Harper. Employed by Apex Medical Staffing. She's my night nurse." Cole frowned. "A nurse? Liam, are the meds making you paranoid again? Your brother vetted her. She's not a civilian, Cole." Liam's jaw tightened. "Last night, my K9 went for her throat. She dropped him into a submissive downstay using a JSOC silent abort signal. She didn't even blink. She moved like a Tier 1 operator." Cole fell silent, the skepticism draining from his face. The clicking of a mechanical keyboard filled the audio channel. "Give me an hour," Cole muttered, abruptly terminating the connection. Liam spent the next 60 minutes staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction he'd had with Evelyn over the past 3 weeks. The way she handled his 4 needles, flawless, but aggressive, like a combat medic treating a casualty under fire. The way she scanned rooms. The way she never talked about her family, her past, or her life outside his cabin. His phone buzzed. A secure text from Cole, "Call me now." Liam dialed. "What did you find?" "Liam, whatever you do, do not let her know you're onto her." Cole's voice was tight with tension. "Evelyn Harper's nursing license is perfectly valid, but it was issued exactly 2 years ago in a fast-track, out-of-state transfer. Her social security number, her credit history, her tax records, they all just magically appear in the system 30 months back. Before that? Nothing. She didn't exist." "A manufactured legend," Liam whispered. "A high-level one," Cole confirmed. "CIA, NSA, or something worse. I ran her facial biometrics through the military databases I can still backdoor into. I got a hit, Liam. It was heavily redacted, highly classified, and it kicked me out of the system immediately." "What did you see before it kicked you out?" Cole hesitated. "A partial unit insignia. Task Force Echo. They handle Black Ops cartel dismantling. The kind of unit that doesn't take prisoners. Liam, if she's in your house, she's not there to change your bandages. She's either there to protect you from the Navarros, or she's there to silence me before I testify about the federal mole," Liam finished, his blood running ice cold. "Be careful," Cole warned. "I'm coming to you. Give me 24 hours to get a flight out of Dulles." The line went dead. Liam stared at the blank screen. He had 24 hours to survive in an isolated house with a highly trained operative whose motives were a complete mystery. That evening, at exactly 8 p.m., the front door unlocked. Evelyn walked in carrying her black medical bag, shedding her rain jacket. "Good evening, Mr. Gallagher," she said, her voice mild and polite. "Evening, Evelyn," Liam replied, forcing a neutral tone. At 10 p.m., Evelyn went down to the basement utility room to swap out the heavy oxygen tanks, a chore that usually took her exactly 4 minutes. Liam fought through the blinding pain in his legs, dragging himself out of bed. His bare feet hit the cold floor. Gritting his teeth, he leaned heavily on his walker and hobbled toward the armchair where Evelyn had left her black medical duffel. His hands shook as he unzipped the main compartment. Gauze, saline, bandages, a stethoscope. He dug deeper, his fingers brushing a hidden zippered pocket at the bottom of the bag. He pulled it back. Nestled inside a custom-fitted foam cutout was a Heckler & Koch USP compact, outfitted with a threaded barrel and a slimline suppressor. Next to it, a spare magazine loaded with hollow-point ammunition, and a syringe of clear liquid, unlabeled, lethal, and completely out of place for a registered nurse. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked in the hallway. Liam looked up. Evelyn was standing in the doorway, staring directly at him, her hands empty, her eyes completely devoid of the gentle nurse persona. "You shouldn't have looked in there, Liam," she said, her voice dropping an octave, carrying the cold, hard edge of a seasoned killer. Titan, standing between them, let out a low, confused whine. He looked at Liam, then back at Evelyn, waiting for a command. And for the first time in his life, Liam had absolutely no idea who the dog would choose to obey. The silence in the room stretched until it felt like a physical weight pressing against Liam's chest. The ambient amber light from the hallway cast long, distorted shadows across Evelyn's face, making her look entirely foreign. The unassuming, quiet night nurse was completely gone. In her place stood a hardened, tactical operative, her posture perfectly balanced, her eyes tracking every micro-expression on Liam's face. Titan let out another low, vibrating whine. The massive Malinois took an uncertain step toward Liam, then a step toward Evelyn, trapped between his bonded handler and a woman who spoke the silent, authoritative language of his past. Liam's grip tightened on the aluminum frame of his walker, his hand slipping agonizingly toward the waistband of his sweatpants, where the compact Glock 19 was tucked. "Tell me who you work for," he rasped, his voice barely audible over the relentless drumming of the storm against the roof. Evelyn didn't reach for the suppressed HKUSP in her medical bag. She didn't move at all. "Take your hand off the weapon, Commander Gallagher. If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't have woken up on Tuesday morning. I would have slipped an untraceable neurotoxin into your foreline, and the coroner would have ruled it a tragic secondary cardiac failure." The clinical, terrifying detachment in her voice sent a chill down his reconstructed spine. She was entirely correct. "That doesn't answer the question," Liam countered, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Cole ran your biometrics. He found a hit with Task Force Echo. You're a ghost." For the first time in 3 weeks, a flicker of genuine emotion, a flash of cold, sharp anger, crossed Evelyn's face. "You spoke to Cole Henderson? He's my former intelligence analyst. The only man I trust." Evelyn closed her eyes for a fraction of a second, letting out a sharp, frustrated breath. "You fool," she whispered. She stepped fully into the room, her movements crisp and deliberate. "Cole Henderson didn't just run my biometrics, Liam. He flagged my presence. And if you called him an hour ago, that means he knows the perimeter is compromised. We are completely out of time." Liam shook his head, a wave of dizzying pain washing over him. "What are you talking about? Cole is my brother in arms. He's flying out from Dulles to extract me." "Cole is not in Virginia, Liam," Evelyn snapped, her voice cutting through the dark like a tactical blade. "He hasn't been in Virginia for 3 weeks. He's in Seattle. And he isn't your friend. Cole is the mole who sold your task force out to the Navarro syndicate 6 months ago." The words hit Liam like a physical blow. He stumbled backward, his bad leg buckling slightly, leaning heavily on the walker to stay upright. "You're lying. Cole and I served together. He bled for this country. He also accumulated over $2 million in offshore gambling debts," Evelyn interrupted, rattling off the facts with brutal efficiency. "The Navarros bought his debt. In exchange, he gave them the blueprints to your raid, the exact coordinates of your team, the radio frequencies you used. He thought you died in that ambush. When you miraculously survived, he panicked. He's been feeding your location and recovery status to the cartel ever since. Then why are you here?" Liam demanded, his voice shaking with a dangerous mix of rage and desperate denial. "Because the Bureau couldn't trust anyone in your immediate federal circle," Evelyn explained, finally reaching down and smoothly lifting the HKUSP from the medical duffel. She checked the chamber with a quick, practiced press check. "Task Force Echo embedded me through the private agency your brother, Wyatt, hired. My mandate was to keep you alive, use you as bait to flush out the mole, and gather actionable intelligence on Navarro's hit squad. You ruined that by calling him." Liam stared at her, the pieces of the last 6 months violently shifting into a horrifying new picture. Cole's constant check-ins. Cole's insistence on knowing the exact layout and security systems of the cabin. Cole's hesitation when he found Evelyn's file. The Sirat? Liam asked, gesturing to the medical bag with a trembling chin. Epinephrine mixed with a highly classified combat coagulant, Evelyn replied, sliding the spare magazine of hollow points into her scrub pocket. In case they clipped you before I could neutralize them. Now listen to me very carefully. If Cole knows I'm Task Force Echo, he isn't getting on a plane. He's already mobilizing a local hit squad. We need to lock this house down. Suddenly, Titan's head snapped toward the front of the house, ears pinning flat against his skull. The low rumble in his chest wasn't a warning anymore. It was a promise of extreme violence. A sharp electronic chirp echoed from Evelyn's wrist. She glanced at her tactical watch, its screen glowing a faint blood red. Perimeter motion sensors just tripped in the southern tree line, she announced, her voice dropping into a dead, emotionless calm. 3 heat signatures, moving fast. They're here. Liam didn't hesitate. The absolute betrayal burned in his chest, but his survival instinct, honed over a decade of brutal combat, took the wheel. He drew the Glock 19, gripping it tight. Titan, Liam commanded, his voice steadying. Defend. Titan let out a vicious snarl, the hair on his back standing up like razor wire. The dog recognized the shift in the room's atmosphere. The confusion was gone. The pack was united. Evelyn moved toward the hallway, her footsteps absolutely silent. She stopped by the thermostat, reached behind the wooden panel, and pulled a hidden braided wire. Instantly, heavy reinforced steel shutters slammed down over the cabin's large bay windows, locking into place with a series of loud mechanical thuds. You retrofitted the cabin? Liam asked, utterly stunned. While you were sleeping? Yes, Evelyn said, her eyes glued to the dark corridor leading to the front door. Wyatt didn't rent this cabin by accident. It's a fortified safe house. I just activated the hard lockdown. They'll breach the doors. Can you walk? If I have to, Liam gritted out, the agony in his femur spiking as he shifted his weight. Don't play hero. Get behind the reinforced oak dresser in the corner. Keep your angles tight. If anything comes through that doorway that isn't me or the dog, you empty the magazine. Evelyn didn't wait for his confirmation. She looked down at Titan. The massive Malinois looked up at her, waiting. Evelyn didn't speak, she executed another rapid hand signal, a flat palm pushed forward, followed by a sweeping motion toward the kitchen. Titan understood immediately. He didn't bark. He dropped into a low, predatory crouch and melted into the shadows, advancing toward the kitchen like a heat-seeking missile. Liam dragged himself behind the heavy oak dresser, his breathing ragged, gripping his pistol with both hands. The nightmare had finally arrived, wearing the face of his best friend. The first explosive charge detonated at exactly 10:42 p.m. The blast ripped the reinforced steel of the front door completely off its hinges, sending a terrifying shockwave through the cabin. Dust and splintered wood rained down from the ceiling. The deafening roar of the explosion was immediately followed by the sharp, rhythmic coughing of suppressed submachine guns. Move, 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 a harsh voice shouted from the living room. It was a voice Liam recognized instantly, a voice that had laughed at his jokes and stood beside him at the funerals of his fallen men. Cole Henderson. Liam's blood ran cold. The betrayal was absolute. From his vantage point in the bedroom, Liam had a narrow line of sight down the hallway. 2 heavily armed mercenaries in dark tactical gear pushed forward, sweeping green laser sights across the walls. Before they could take a third step, a shadow detached itself from the kitchen's ceiling beams. Evelyn had climbed the stone fireplace. She dropped behind the second mercenary in complete silence. In one fluid, devastating motion, she wrapped her arm around his neck, driving a combat karambit blade precisely into the gap between his tactical helmet and his Kevlar vest. The man crumpled instantly, without a single sound. The first mercenary spun around, weapon rising, but a fraction of a second too late. From beneath the kitchen island, Titan launched himself like a 70-pound artillery shell. The Malinois hit the mercenary squarely in the chest, jaws locking onto the man's forearm with bone-crushing force. The mercenary screamed, dropping his submachine gun, flailing wildly in the dark as Titan dragged him violently to the floor. Evelyn didn't waste a heartbeat. She raised her suppressed HKUSP and fired 2 quick, clinical shots. The mercenary went limp. Titan, AUS. Evelyn commanded sharply. The dog released his grip instantly, muzzle covered in blood, eyes burning with adrenaline. He retreated to her side, pressing his flank against her leg. Fall back. They have a dog. Cole yelled from the living room, sheer panic lacing his voice. He hadn't expected heavy resistance. He hadn't expected Evelyn. Footsteps rushed toward the back door. They were trying to flank the bedroom. Liam, back door. Evelyn shouted from the kitchen, tossing a flashbang into the living room to pin Cole down. Liam swung his Glock toward the reinforced window facing the back porch. A shadowy figure was trying to attach a breaching charge to the glass. Ignoring the searing pain in his leg, Liam braced his arms on the oak dresser, took a deep breath, and squeezed the trigger. The Glock barked 3 times. The 9mm hollow points shattered the weakened glass and struck the mercenary squarely in the chest. The man tumbled backward off the porch, disappearing into the torrential rain. A blinding flash of white light and a deafening boom erupted from the living room as Evelyn's stun grenade detonated. Liam pushed himself up on his good leg, pure adrenaline masking the agony in his spine. He limped out of the bedroom into the hallway. Smoke from the explosive charge hung thick in the air, smelling heavily of sulfur and burnt wood. In the center of the devastated living room, Cole Henderson was on his knees, clutching his right shoulder, dark blood seeping through his fingers. His weapon lay 5 feet away. Evelyn stood directly over him, her gun pointed precisely at the center of his forehead. Titan paced around Cole in a tight, aggressive circle, letting out a terrifying, guttural snarl, waiting for the signal to tear the man apart. Liam limped forward, his breath hitching as he looked down at his former friend. Cole looked up, coughing on the smoke, his eyes wide with desperate fear. Liam, you have to listen to me. They were going to kill my family. The Navarras, they had my wife. You sold out my team, Cole, Liam said, his voice completely hollow, devoid of any emotion. You let 3 good men die. You put me in a wheelchair. And then you came here to finish the job. I had no choice, Cole sobbed, reaching a bloody hand out toward Liam. Please. Titan lunged, snapping his massive jaws inches from Cole's outstretched hand, forcing the traitor to recoil in absolute terror. Evelyn didn't look at Liam. Her eyes stayed locked on Cole. Task Force Echo has his family in protective custody, Liam. They've been completely safe for 3 weeks. He didn't do this for them. He did it for the money. The last shred of Liam's heart hardened into solid ice. He lowered his weapon. He didn't want the blood on his hands. He didn't want anything to do with this man ever again. He's yours, Liam whispered quietly to Evelyn, turning his back on his former friend. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, delivering a brutal, calculated strike with the butt of her pistol to the side of Cole's head. Cole's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed unconscious onto the hardwood floor. Zip-tie him, Evelyn ordered into her wrist comms, speaking to the tactical cleanup crew waiting a mile down the road. Target secured. Send the medical evac for Commander Gallagher. She turned to Liam, the cold operator slipping away slightly, revealing a small, weary fraction of the nurse who had spent 3 weeks quietly watching over him. She reached down, offering her hand. Liam looked at her, then down at Titan. The aggressive, broken dog was sitting calmly at her side now, looking up at Liam with clear, peaceful eyes. The nightmare was finally over. Liam took her hand, pulling himself up, ready to step out of the shadows. Did this intense story of survival, brutal betrayal, and tactical brilliance keep you on the absolute edge of your seat? The bond between a warrior and a loyal canine is unbreakable, especially when the enemy is hiding in plain sight. If you love the thrilling twists and heart-pounding action of Liam and Titan's fight for survival, hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping, real-life tactical stories. Hi, my name is Tran Tan, owner and manager of Noble Tales. After watching this video where he thought she was just a night nurse until his canine obeyed her secret hand signal, I'd really like to know what you think. How did this story make you feel? What stood out to me was the reminder that we don't always know someone's full story just by looking at them. Respect, patience, and keeping an open mind can reveal strengths we never expected to see. Which moment caught your attention the most? Have you ever been surprised by someone's hidden experience or abilities? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, feel free to like the video and subscribe for more stories that spark meaningful conversations.